claim should never have taken 20 years to be heard. And that was not his fault. That was absolutely the fault of the justice system. It was the fault of the defense attorneys who were appointed to the case. It was the fault of the prosecution for dragging their feet on turning over evidence that should have been turned over. It was not Daniel Green's fault that took so long.
I talked to Daniel on the phone the day the ruling came out. He wanted to make a public statement, but he was upset, jumping from topic to topic as fast as his brain would take him.
I was, convicted and incarcerated for crimes I didn't commit. This criminal justice system has victimized my family and my people for decades. I'm not surprised.
Wow, what you just heard is a part of the last episode of our Follow the Truth podcast, the series taking a look at the story behind the murder of Michael Jordan's father and the man who maintains his innocence years after being convicted for the crime. And podcast host Amanda Lamb is joining us live in studio to talk about this last episode. Amanda, we were just listening. We heard about the bombshell with Larry Demery dropping on Green's attorney. That's Chris Muma, still a judge, who did not agree to bring new evidence to the court. Why do you think this decision was made?
Well, so what happened was right after this was denied, this appeal was denied, she sent in this affidavit saying Larry Demery told me he did this, not Daniel Green. And they thought that would sway the court, but obviously the judge didn't find that credible.
And just now, before you joined us, we heard part of Daniel's reaction to the ruling. What does he think would help turn things around and make people hear more of his side of the story?
That's a great question. A lot of people think, oh, if Larry Demery would just tell the truth. Daniel says, you can't count on that. I mean, this guy's up for parole. Why would he do that to himself? So Daniel thinks he wants people to look at the evidence, that they've brought forth new evidence. Look at that evidence, examine it, and see how that evidence doesn't line up with what happened at trial.
You truly have breathed new life into the case, but where do you think the case goes from here?
Well, as we say in episode 10, they have appealed this ruling now. They just appealed that on July 30th. That's to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And if they don't get relief there, they will go all the way to the North Carolina Supreme Court. And Daniel is actually up for his first parole review in October. So they are preparing for that now.
What's interesting is the name, Follow the Truth. It's such a strong and powerful name for the podcast. Do you feel like you have gotten to the bottom of things?
You know what, Mikaya? I feel like we have gotten closer than anyone who has ever covered this story has gotten. And I think it continues. We're continuing to follow the truth. This story is not over.
And we're now 10 episodes in, many months through digging through the case. What is your personal takeaway for this?
I think my personal takeaway is that justice doesn't mean the same thing for everybody in America. That justice has to do with a lot of things: socioeconomics, race, age, where the crime happens, when the crime happened, and that we can't look at these cases in a vacuum. We have to examine them on an individual basis.
And right before we came on, my first question for Amanda, I said, what's next? What are we doing? A lot of people want more. What can you tell us is next?
So next, we have another podcast coming. It's called What Remains, and it is a science kind of forensic podcast where we try to link unidentified remains in the state of North Carolina with murdered and missing people. We're working with a forensic anthropologist from NC State. It is fascinating.
That's the word I was going to use. I was like, it sounds absolutely fascinating. This is the last episode of Follow the Truth. We know on Thursdays that's our big podcast day, but you can still catch up. So log on. Make sure you check out Follow the Truth on WRAL.com. Amanda, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.